freezing rain on a January night, and 1,000 eyes glued to a tiny, impossibly thin device on a stage. In Waterloo, a group of BlackBerry engineers watched the moment that would rewrite their industry. That device was the iPhone. It did not explode BlackBerry overnight, but it changed the rules BlackBerry had been playing by for a decade. This is not a story about a company betrayed by fate. It is about choices, identities, and the slow erosion of an empire built on trust. Research in Motion began as a scrappy Canadian startup in 1984. By the late 1990s and the early 2000s, its BlackBerry was synonymous with secure corporate life. Executives, diplomats, and entire governments relied on its push email and encrypted networks. But when the smartphone shifted from a business tool to a personal must-have, RIM hesitated. The following chapters trace a clear arc: the genius that made BlackBerry indispensable, the breakthroughs it misread, the strategic errors that compounded, and the late pivots that were too little too late. Listen for the human decisions inside boardrooms, developer meetings, and late-night code sprints. Because at its heart, this is a story about people who refused to believe the world had changed. The origins are almost shockingly modest. In 1984, two young engineers in Waterloo, Mike Lazaridis and Douglas Fregan, founded Research in Motion as a way to explore wireless data. They were outsiders, tinkering with modems and radio protocols while the rest of the world still used landlines. Their breakthrough was not a flashy gadget but a service, reliable push email that worked over flaky mobile networks. BlackBerry devices, starting in 1999 with early pager-style units, created a new class of user, someone who could manage work instantly from anywhere. Corporate IT departments loved the controlled environment, centralized servers, device management, and encrypted traffic that sat snugly behind a company firewall. BlackBerry Messenger, which arrived later, turned the device into a social glue, a private, real-time channel tied to a unique PIN, not a phone number. The human story here is clear. RIM built trust by solving real pain for busy, security-conscious people. Executives who once feared mobile leaks now used BlackBerry as a lifeline. The company grew fast, celebrated on both sides of the Atlantic, and became a national pride for Canada. At its peak, BlackBerry was not just a product, it was a credential, a symbol that you were plugged into global business and trusted to handle secrets. BlackBerry's technical winning hand was subtle, elegant, and deeply human-focused. Instead of competing to be the flashiest phone, RIM doubled down on reliability and security. Their push email architecture delivered messages instantly, while BlackBerry Enterprise Server allowed IT teams to manage devices remotely and enforce policies. Encryption was baked into the system, and corporate customers loved it. For diplomats and executives, that meant certainty. Confidential messages stayed confidential. BlackBerry Messenger amplified the product's emotional pull. It created a tight-knit community where messages felt private and immediate. These features were not accidental. They reflected RIM's culture, an engineering obsession with protocols, latency, and correctness. The company built an ecosystem optimized for work, and millions of users accepted the trade-offs: a small screen, physical keyboard, and a device that looked utilitarian but performed like a vault. Commercially, this focus created a moat. Contracts with corporations and governments meant predictable revenue, and the device became indispensable. The human trade-off was clear. Convenience for the mass market would arrive later, if at all. That decision shaped every product choice after, and it set the stage for the clash to come. The industry pivot arrived quietly and then all at once. In 2007, Apple introduced the iPhone, reframing what a phone could be: elegant, touch-first, and designed for personal life as much as for work. A year later, Android entered the field, and the App Store economy exploded. Suddenly, a phone was a platform for creativity and entertainment, not just a conduit for email. RIM's leadership had options, but the company had built its identity around a different promise. The BlackBerry experience, optimized for typing and secure administration, felt increasingly out of sync with a market that wanted media, apps, and a fluid touch interface. The human effect was immediate. Younger professionals and consumers who once aspired to a BlackBerry began to covet sleek, app-rich devices. Developers flocked to ecosystems where distribution and monetization were straightforward. RIM's developer story was fragmented APIs, limited store reach, and a user base that skewed enterprise-heavy. The company had underestimated how quickly consumer expectations would reshape enterprise norms. The tension was corporate culture versus market momentum, and market momentum had a headwind. The smartphone had become personal. You can trace BlackBerry's decline through a handful of decisions that multiplied like debt. RIM was slow to embrace touchscreens and initially downplayed the importance of apps. Management choices amplified these strategic misreads. The company split focus between its entrenched enterprise customers and a consumer market that was folding the internet into daily life. Leadership infighting and a dual CEO structure in its earlier years sometimes created sluggish responses to market signals. Technical bets also carried risk. RIM bought QNX to build a new operating system, which later powered the Playbook and BlackBerry 10, but integration took time. Time is unforgiving in tech. Meanwhile, competitors iterated rapidly, improving app catalogs, touch responsiveness, and developer tools. BlackBerry's hardware kept shipping solid keyboards and incremental updates while the rest of the world was rewriting UI conventions. The result was a shrinking halo of influence. Corporate customers remained loyal for longer than expected, but new users stopped choosing BlackBerry. These were not random failures. They were predictable outcomes from cultural and strategic misalignment. A company optimized for one future when another had arrived. RIM tried to pivot, and the moves were bold but mistimed. The Playbook tablet, announced in 2010 and released in 2011, aimed to crack the consumer market and showcase the company's QNX technology. But it shipped without a native email client at launch, a crippling omission for a brand built on communications. Critics were swift, and developers hesitated. Next came BlackBerry 10, the full-throated effort to build a modern mobile OS, launched in 2013 with devices like the Z10 and Q10. The software was elegant in places and introduced fresh ideas for multitasking and security. Yet it arrived late, and the app gap was vast. Developers had already invested heavily in iOS and Android, and porting to BB10 was a costly afterthought. The market had moved on, and consumer mindshare is notoriously hard to recapture. In late 2013, leadership changed again, and the company rebranded itself BlackBerry Limited as it began to confront an unpopular truth. Hardware alone would no longer carry the business. The pivot was real, but windows in tech are narrow. When you miss them, even excellent engineering can feel irrelevant. Between 2011 and 2013, BlackBerry's market share collapsed from roughly 20% to single digits as consumers and developers consolidated around two dominant platforms. The financial pressure mounted, device revenue shrank, and the company took write-downs that shocked investors. Leadership changes followed. In late 2013, John Chen became CEO and began steering BlackBerry towards software and services, particularly enterprise security and device management. By 2016, the handset business was licensed and later sold to hardware partners like TCL, and BlackBerry pivoted to software, licensing its brand and focusing on cybersecurity and embedded systems. The company shed factories and personnel, and the era of BlackBerry as a ubiquitous handset brand ended. But collapse is not the same as erasure. BlackBerry survived as a specialist. Its reputation for security allowed it to re-enter enterprise markets as a software provider, and its patents and technologies found new life in connected cars and niche devices. The human cost was real, jobs lost, a national icon diminished, and pride tempered by necessity. Yet, the company endured, reinventing itself from handset titan to a security-first software firm. What does BlackBerry's fall teach us about technology, business, and human judgment? First, trust can be a durable competitive advantage. BlackBerry proved that deep security and reliability can create long-term relationships with customers. Second, focus can become a weakness when the world redefines the problem you are solving. RIM optimized for enterprise certainty and underestimated how personal mobile computing would reshape expectations. Third, timing matters more than genius alone. Buying new technology is helpful, but integrating it rapidly and winning developer mindshare is harder. The final lesson is human. Leaders must question their assumptions and listen credibly to signals outside their core customer base. Today, BlackBerry exists differently, a company reborn as a software and security specialist. Its phones are mostly gone, but its imprint on mobile security and enterprise mobility remains. The story is not just about decline, it is about the elasticity of companies and the people inside them who must reinvent or accept obsolescence. In the end, BlackBerry's legacy is a cautionary tale and a guide. Protect your moat, but never confuse it with the market. I hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the strategies and the relentless mindset behind these global icons. If you enjoy deconstructing business empires and tech legends in this Tech Archive style, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. That way, you will never miss a new blueprint of history. For those of you ready to explore more boardroom coups and technological breakthroughs, I have handpicked 2 videos for you right here on the screen. Click one to keep watching. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.